everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Teens No Cap. I'm your host, Charity Chafee. I'm a licensed mental health counselor specializing in the treatment of high-risk teens and adolescents. I also work a ton with the families. And this podcast was really birthed out of a place of wanting to help support providers who are working with teens, who wanted tools and understandings and conversations and frameworks, and also to help support parents if they're struggling with parenting their teen, because we know that no teen comes with an instruction manual, although we wish they did. And so we spend time on the show interviewing different professionals that work with teens and work with clinicians and work with families and really talking about their niche and their specialty. So I am so very excited to welcome our guest today, Lindsey Jonan. I'm going to let you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of start there.
Okay, happy to be here. Thank you so much. My name is Lindsey Jonan. I am a creative speaker, art therapist, licensed counselor, supervisor. I own Lily Counseling and Art Therapy, which is located in a very small town, Bordentown, New Jersey. So I see clients in person over there, typically 10 years old and up. So I do absolutely work with teens. And I also see folks virtually. So anyone who's in New Jersey and Florida, maybe other states down the line, we'll see. But yes, I work with a variety of folks in my clinical space. And then I also have another business called Abstract and Aligned. And this is my creative speaking hub and my workshop hub, where I offer different team developments, different presentations for various teams, organizations. I go to schools, and then I offer art workshops for various communities. And I love it so much. I'm all about creativity and art, and when I can talk about it, it brings me great joy.
I was going to say, that's one thing I've really loved about you is I can feel like the joy and the passion you have about like art and creativity and in like therapy like radiates off of you.
Oh, thank you.
So you carry that well.
Thank you.
So, okay, for the people that are listening, I know that there are obviously clinicians that will use art in therapy. And there's also our specialized, trained, licensed, certified art therapists. And so I'm wondering if you can start us off with telling us a little bit about what those differences are. And then maybe speak a little bit to how the work might look different if you were with like a certified art therapist versus someone who just uses art in therapy.
Yes, absolutely. And this is definitely a hot topic in the art therapy world. There's debates back and forth. I come up from a place where art just naturally can be therapeutic, can be healing. So I encourage, if people are willing to tap into their creativity using art materials, I encourage, no matter what background you're coming from. Now, with art therapy, we have our own field, right? It's a professional field that we go into. There is specific training, there's ethics behind it, and there's a bunch of protocols here. And as an art therapist in New Jersey, there's licensure now. So anyone who uses art therapy, it does need to be from a trained art therapist. But there is such a thing as just bringing creative practices in the therapy space and not needing to be an art therapist. And I encourage that as long as, hey, you're practicing within your scope, you are being appropriate with your client, and you're referring out as needed, and you're even seeking consultation with things. So with art therapy, we're not using art really as a activity or as a craft. We're using it as, hey, these art materials are a tool to assist you in processing, to dig deeper into different traumas, to allow ourselves to maybe process things that words maybe aren't able to be as satisfying in a way, to maybe get through some layers here. But I see the difference between art therapists and non-art therapists is that, right? That layer of unpacking, recognizing that maybe there's some symbolism there that we can process with a client, and acknowledging that it's up to the client, it's up to the artist to pinpoint, hey, this is what's coming up for me. Because let's say for you and I, if I were to say, hey, draw how you're feeling today, and you pick up red and you go all over the page, I'm not going to say, oh, you use red because you're feeling anxious and angry, right? No, right? That's not what I do. I ask about it. So that sometimes can be a little bit of the differences that I see, not all the time, but sometimes with seeing people who are not trained in art therapy just will put on symbolism or put on their own thought biases, judgments. Whereas you might say, well, hey, I use red because I feel very loving and compassionate today, right? So there can be that difference. But I chat with non-art therapists and go into consultation to review some cases. I encourage certain practices to help regulate emotions too when we're in the therapy room. And really, it's just about using our tools and best supporting the client. So yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I love a few things. Obviously, I love all of this, but there's one thing you said that I was really interested in because you had essentially talked about how one of the biases to look out for is like the assumption process, right? Is that we all have the same colors and the same symbols that mean the same things, and it sounds like that would be a trap that someone could fall into who maybe isn't as well trained in the art therapy or isn't certified.
Yes. And throughout my career, people have asked me, hey, Lindsey, my client made this, or like my daughter made this. What does this mean? Well, tell me more about your daughter. Like, what was the directive? What did you guys end up doing? I wasn't in the space, right? And your daughter's not right in front of me, or the client's not right in front of me. So we need to hear from the child or whoever that person was, and to, if maybe there were no verbal cues, well, how was the body language, right? Like, how was this person when they came in your space? So there's a lot more to it. And there's that myth of, well, art therapists are there to maybe critique your work or tell you exactly what came out from it. And no, right? We got to have that conversation, or at least like that rapport, that relationship here, to unpack some things.
I was gonna say, I remember you had talked at one point about how there's a distinct difference between an art therapist and an art teacher. And I love that comparison because I feel like when you say that, it really allows you to step back and think about like what your own experiences were like in art class, where you weren't coloring within the lines, or you got like the primary colors wrong, or that like your paper mache wasn't going to turn out because you didn't do this thing, right? There's like so much criticism that comes with that. So I love that you just like differentiated it like that.
Yes. And that's how I bring it up to clients too. I bring up the differences because typically people come to me and they've never done art therapy, maybe they've never heard of it before, and it's so rewarding because hey, I'm the first one to kind of bring it up to them or invite them to this process, and it's a beautiful thing, right? But yes, I explain the differences because typically people have experience in art classes at least. And they both have a purpose, right? Art classes and art therapy, right? They're both great things, but acknowledging that I'm not an art teacher. I'm not coming in here to criticize your work or make you do a specific things like, yeah, color in the lines. I'm a big color outside the lines, right? If that's what's going on here. And using these tools using these materials as tools. I'm not one to, we're not here to perfect a specific technique, right? So if we're doing watercolor, we're not here on like perfecting the watercolor technique or working on realism here. It's more of just that process and process over product as well when it comes to art therapy too. Whereas in art class, hey, it typically is that product. So you can get a grade, say you hand it in, you go in that art critique. So there are definitely those differences there.
I'm curious from your perspective, because I've heard you talk a lot about creativity, right? And being kind of like playful in sessions. And I love that because I feel like so often as adults, we forget about play. We forget about creativity. We forget about using that part of our brains. And so I'm curious about what you've seen when you've been able to kind of tap into that for someone or with someone in session.
It's once somebody allows themselves to go through it, to say, okay, I'm just going to make this mark without that perfectionism coming out, It is beautiful. It's kind of that aha moment because creativity is blossomed through openness and just that freedom to let loose and just go for it. And it that can carry with us throughout our day to day. Just recognizing that we're human, we're going to make mistakes. Let me just do it. Let me do it scared. Let me do it anxious and just go for it. So when they can just do it in a therapeutic space where they do feel supported, safe, it is more empowering of, oh, okay, this was one step. Where can this take me? So creativity and art making is just that one piece to it. So it's beautiful to be able to witness that, and you can just see kind of the shift there. And when they complete it, when they do their process through art making, they kind of like sit back. Oh, that was pretty nice. Like I needed that. Beautiful thing.
I think about it too in terms of what we're exposing our clients to, around like coping skills and, like really understanding how they connect to different things. And I think that's like, I use art in some of my sessions, but also like I'm not an art therapist, right? And so I think it's really cool to see the difference between someone who like uses art and someone who like specializes in like applying that modality.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And again, I think I saw you share like blackout poetry. I think I saw you post that on Facebook or whatnot, right? And just these other techniques that we can use. And with teens, I don't know about you, but when I was a teen, I engaged in art a lot, right? Looking back, I do wish I could have told myself like make art more and be willing to make mistakes with your art, like make the bad art, right? And I do the bunny quotes because hey, I think all art is good art because at least you're making art. But like go out there and make the art because it can be such a great regulating tool, right? Just like how maybe going for a walk, journaling, yeah, scribbles, something super as simple as that can be such a great tool for us. And with teens, sometimes they struggle with verbalizing the things that are going on, or maybe they don't want to talk about some things because they're just tired throughout their school day. And maybe at the end of the day, they don't want to chat about some things, right? So I encourage even the parents, like, hey, make art together. Whether you're working on one project or you're just sitting side by side and working on a specific project.
That is one thing I think that comes up a lot in sessions when you're using art or when you're using other kind of like small games or little pieces like that. I get so many parents who are like, that's not therapy. Like, you need to be talking about things. Like, we're not making any progress because you're spending too much time doing art, right? And obviously, like, I have conversations with them about why we do certain things, but I'm certain you probably get some of that pushback too, even as an art therapist.
Yes. And that's where education can be really powerful, right? And very important for these parents because they have their own opinions. And maybe, you know what, maybe they have some situations within their history within art classes that maybe they were criticized or like they didn't enjoy it or something, right? They have their own opinions and judgments here. So I come from a place of just let's have a conversation about it. So during intake, I bring it up. I talk about art therapy. And a lot of times people will come to me specifically for art therapy because maybe they've heard about it or their doctor has brought it up. Hey, go find an art therapist. But yes, I break it down, explain that this is a valuable resource, and I encourage parents, hey, what I'm teaching your kids, I want you to do too. So I have those conversations with the parents because, hey, environment is a huge impact on our overall well-being, right? Impacts us greatly. So if the parents are not using these regulating tools or resources, how can we expect our kid to? So huge.
Role modeling is one of the most important parts of working with teenagers and getting parents involved into all the coping skills we're teaching and all the different strategies and like the different activities. And it can be a lot of fun. And I think that like that's part of the thing that I try to remind parents is that like it doesn't have to be daunting. You don't have to hate it. Like you can actually have fun with your teenager who also will fight with you in 20 minutes about like their curfew.
Exactly. Yes, but let's appreciate those moments where hey, we're regulating, we're having fun, and go from there, right? Because that your kid is going to pay attention to that, right? Those moments where hey, mom sat with me and we did art together, or we talked about some things, and they're going to pay attention to that. They're going to recognize that, and even like look back on it when they're our age, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing too that I love is that, you know, when I was in grad school, and I do have a story about my high school art experience that I want to share with you. But when I was in grad school, I I remember them talking about how important it was sometimes to get a teen's hands busy so that then the words could flow. And so I think that that is a big way that I use art in session is by like offering them an opportunity, something fun, something creative, not to necessarily do art therapy because again, I'm not an art therapist, but like to offer them that like tangible thing where they can then just like let their brain flow and not have to be so critical about what they're saying. Um, so
Yes, absolutely. As sometimes I'll do that in sessions, right? I'll say, you know what? Here's a clipboard. Let's just doodle as we're chatting. And
mhm.
I'm the same way. It's very helpful for me to have like a fidget. I got a fidget right next to me, right? This little clicker here. To fidget with something, to doodle, to walk at, there you go, right? Yes,
Oh, don't
to
fidget,
walk,
yeah.
to walk because I am naturally like an energetic person. So to get me on track here, it is helpful to to keep myself busy, and an adult, right? So absolutely for these teens, it can be so helpful to engage in art or have a fidget, something, right? To doodle with as we're working. One thing real quick, because I do want to hear your story, but I also want to acknowledge with art therapists too, we are trained in various materials, right? We take art classes as well, and we take those art therapy courses, but we're trained in materials because some materials may be triggering for clients, and the client might not know until they use it. It's like, whoa, all right, dysregulation now. And if you're not trained in that, you can cause a rupture, a panic attack, right? So just being mindful of the materials we are encouraging our clients. So I just want to throw that piece out there too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing where, and actually, this was one of my questions. And then I promise I'll tell you my story. But one of my questions was like, when you are someone, let's say who's not an art therapist, right? How do you recommend assessing your own understanding, and then how do we get further training in it if we're not like certified in art therapy?
Well, with art therapy, like I went to Caldwell University, love the school. I'm working with interns who went there. There is a postgraduate, as far as I remember, postgrad offering that you can go for it and everything. Do what you got to do. Because to be an art therapist, you need to have your master's degree. And just like how we go through social worker and counseling training, it's the same thing. So to learn a bit more about the process, I would seek consultation with art therapists. There are art therapists who do trainings for non-art therapists, like I've done that, and I do chat with folks about some things. And just opening your knowledge base and your resources. Just like for me, there are certain populations maybe I will not work with, but maybe I'll reach out to some folks if I'm feeling a little like, oh, I'm not sure about this. How can I best support this client? So I'll use my resources, right? So connection is huge within this field, right? Within the therapy bubble here. And I'm big on connection, community, and hey, private practice can be isolating. So it's just good to chat with other people, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, and I think that you know, there. I feel like when you've done supervision in your license, there's this kind of hesitation to continue in further supervision or consultation. And like, I wish that that was not such a big mountain to climb for people and that it was something that felt very automatic. Because I do think that like I've learned a ton about like meeting and chatting with other professionals, and like I have learned different ideas and different wordings and things like that. And I think that we discount the opportunity and the value that consistent consultation offers. And there are a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to pay for consultation. And it's like, well, if you have 15 years as an art therapist, why shouldn't you be fairly compensated for your experience and for that support back? So it's just a really interesting conversation that I feel like we're having within the field.
Yes. And as you and I both know, training doesn't stop once we get the degree, once we get the license. It is constantly changing. We also need to maintain our own wellness and check with ourselves of like, hey, Lindsey, how am I doing today? Right? Like what's going on? So just continuing to broaden your knowledge and experience, and by doing that, well, you listen to podcasts. I know you have a variety of them. Listen to them. Talk to other people, read some books, and your clients will gain benefits from it, and you will as well as the provider.
Yes, absolutely. It's very much concurrent growth and development. So I appreciate that. Okay, back to my story of high school art. So I was always a very artsy, creative kid. I was like writing stories and I was like drawing books and like you name it. And I remember having such a hard time with color theory. And like I literally could not, and I still can't, and I'm an adult, I still can't tell you what the primary colors are and how they correspond with like other colors. And like color mixing is like very much like, it feels like a privilege of information that I like cannot access, right? And I was also terrible at drawing, but I had a lot of like other good experience. But I literally gave up art because I was like, well, if I don't understand the colors and if I can't draw, then I'm not an artist, right? Now, flash forward to like high school when I was like making collages like daily, right? Like weird ass collages with different things. And I remember I had one of my high school journals. The entire back of it was just eyes that were cut out of like different magazines that were all like collaged together on the back of my like journal, right? And it's interesting because like I had all of that and still didn't consider myself an artist because I couldn't draw and I didn't understand color theory.
I wish I could like hug your teen self, right? Your younger self right there. Well, okay, here's a question then. How about now? Would you identify as being an artist?
Yes. Yes, I would. And I think that like my sense of art is a little bit different now because I do feel like collages are art. I do feel like design, right, is an art. I do feel like things like therapy is an art, right? And so the way that I've conceptualized art has definitely shifted. But I still enjoy doing those things. And I love like crocheting and I love creating like different things like that. So for me, art feels less theoretical and more applied at this point in my life. And actually you'll die laughing about this because I really can't draw to save my life. One of my like favorite activities with teenagers, especially if there's a day where they're like struggling to kind of chat about something or like there was a big week, I do something called 21 doodles. I pick one or they pick one and then we both doodle it and then we show each other our like doodles. And I always preface this with being like, you're gonna laugh at every single thing I draw and you probably won't know what it is. But like I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm gonna do it bad, right? And it's actually a really fun thing because like I had one kid who was like turtle and I was like, okay, and I like drew a turtle and then they were like, well, you got it closer, like that was kind of a turtle, and I was like, I really appreciate your like praise for that because, and then like they were able to draw something and they were like, yeah, I kind of messed up here, and I was like, but I knew what it was, like I knew what you were going for. And so like just that activity offers us a lot of opportunity to like have some like conversations, really just being humans and encouraging each other in something that maybe we're not good at. And like, I literally keep those drawings forever because I'm just like, I remember this session of like the time we did this and like what came up and what they drew. And it's like so fun. But I'm not an art therapist, but that's how I incorporate it in little places. And I do that with families too. It's so fun with families.
Okay. It sounds like a fun activity. I like that. So maybe people who are listening, maybe they'll start incorporating that, right? That's a nice idea. This is something I chat with a lot of times to clients, teams that I work with, community members. I ask people, hey, raise a hand who here identifies as being creative. Not many people will raise their hand because they believe creativity and art are the only things. But no, there's creativity in all these other aspects as well. It is not just artists' own creativity. And that aspect of, well, I'm not an artist because I'm not a fine artist. I don't do realism, right? So maybe your past self would say, well, I'm not an artist because I can't draw, right? I can't draw how like the teacher draws or my peers. And that can be really unfortunate because that brings on that comparison, that not good enough feeling or thinking, and that perfectionism of, well, I guess I'm just not good, so I'll kick this out of my life. And I see this a lot with teens too, and yes, as they grow up with adults, because it kind of shattered, right? When they were in art classes, or parents sometimes can criticize, well, we know parents can criticize teens, and especially if they're making art, there's that criticism from external members, right? And then now we have that internal belief here. So my theme here is to encourage authentic expression, creativity, and allowing that artist to come out in whatever form. Collage is beautiful. I welcome people who maybe are a little cautious with drawing, start collaging, because it can just be therapeutic ripping those papers, right? Glue, it's like a nice mindfulness activity here, just kind of pasting, putting together, and it's using the tools that are already there. You're not using your drawing skills, right? We'll use that word, skills, to create something. So absolutely, collage is less intimidating than drawing or painting. But it can just be really, really crummy and really sad when people say, well, no, I'm not good enough, so I'm not going to do it. But then they come to art therapy, they come to these adult art workshops where it's more about the process, letting loose, see what happens. And I hear about stories of, wow, Lindsey, I missed this. I missed doing this. Okay, well, let's keep doing it then, right? Like, you can do this more at home. And use the materials that are around you. You do not need to spend that much money if you don't want to at Michael's, right? We use our resources.
Yeah. I'm chuckling because I have a family member with a hoarding issue, and she would often say that she was keeping everything for art. Okay. So it's an interesting thing because I'm just on one hand being like, absolutely. And then I think in certain presentations, it can be used as a crutch. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the great parts of art. But that's why I was chuckling.
Yes. But I want to say, sometimes people will hoard materials and they won't use them.
Okay, so tell me about that part.
I think it's kind of like that hit of dopamine a little bit, right? Like, ooh, I got this. Ooh, it's exciting, right? But then they'll put it away because it's not time yet. I don't have the perfect moment. I don't have the perfect thing to put this sticker on, right? So we just collect, but we're not using our tools. And some art materials will go bad if you're not using them. They will dry out a lot of times if they're just sitting in your attic somewhere. And looking back at these materials, like all the money that's been spent, the time, the energy of collecting these things, use your materials. Make the art. You do not need to show anyone. You don't need to put it on social media if you don't want to. You can destroy it afterwards. Just make the art. The world needs more art. And I just encourage anyone who's listening just to start creating.
I love it. I love it. I agree with you. I think it's when I work with teens, one of the hopes I have for them up into adulthood is they don't lose the ability to play.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And I know that there's so much pressure from people to be productive, to be real, to be
Yeah.
serious, to whatever. But I think that's one of the big disconnects that's happening between teens and families is that the parents like literally forget how to play and rest and
Yeah.
relax because they're so driven by capitalism or their job or whatever. Um, and that's just, I want everyone to be able to play, similarly with you.
Yes. To play, create, go into that whimsy, be silly. Not everything needs to be serious, right? There's a time and place, of course, but you can still be your creative and whimsy self while also being serious, right? We can be both at the same time, right? It can work. But you are absolutely right of too in society there's this go 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 mentality and it leads to burnout and it doesn't leave time for creativity or rest. And that's super unfortunate. And we know as therapists and as humans, we know the drastic outcome that's going to happen with that go go mentality of not taking time for yourself and resting. There was a video I saw on Instagram the other day of this woman who was just doing things really fast. Like she was washing her face really fast. She was cooking her meal fast. She was eating while she was typing things. And that's a great visual of a lot of our lives, a lot of these people's lives, and even teens feeling like I got to get all this done. I'm in band. I'm in sports. I need to make sure I attend this scholarship meeting. I need to make sure I do this essay. Oh, I need to be here with my parents. There's so many directions we're getting pulled, and not taking that time to rest and recover, and how important that is. So yeah, art making is that time for me to rest and recover, and it is productive. Rest is productive. It needs to be in that sustainable wellness package, we'll say.
Yes. Yes. Facts. I agree. Okay. So two questions are coming up for me, and I'm curious about your thoughts. Is art therapy particularly helpful for treatment in certain diagnostic presentations?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say really any, to be honest. Right? Like for me in my practice, I work with a lot of folks who have anxiety. I have folks that have ADHD, autism. They're going through like life transitions. So yes, and I also have experience with working with substance use, working in psychiatric hospitals. Right? So absolutely bring in the art in the room, incredibly rewarding, incredibly helpful. It also just depends on what materials you're using, right? So if there is someone who just maybe is a bit more dysregulated, I might not use watercolor because watercolor can be really frustrating for folks, and it's a fluid material. So for that person, maybe I would start with colored pencils and markers, right? Keep it a little bit more basic, and that's okay. So just aligning with, hey, you know your client, right? Chat with the family, and also recognize, okay, what's best in treatment right now. So yeah, absolutely, variety.
Well, and I think the way that I've often conceptualized teenagers in particular is that you kind of have this like giant maze, and sometimes you have to explore a lot of different ways to get in to figure out like how all those things connect. And I think we can use a lot of different modalities to do that and a lot of different activities. Um, and sometimes I'm surprised by the things that people want to try and they want to get into or that they've never been exposed to before. And I really feel like art is one of those things where sometimes it's like, have we explored this yet in treatment? And is that something that has been incorporated? Which kind of leads me to my next question. Because I was in a group earlier and we were talking about kind of like an augmented therapy situation. And I'm curious for you if there are times that art therapy is like an augmented part of like traditional talk therapy, or if you feel like it's more like it should live with one person in treatment.
I I like breaking it up because sometimes a client is not interested in making art, but maybe they came to me like specifically for art therapy, right? So maybe it's like, you know what, I don't feel like making art today, right? So we'll just go into the talk space, right? Or incorporating play, right? Um, so I think it's really like a case by case basis, right? And recognizing the person as a whole, right? Not having that cookie cutter treatment. And yeah, just going with ideas that maybe I have, like, hey, how about we try this? But ultimately, if the client's not interested, well, then hey, I'm not going to force anything. So I think it's kind of like that balance there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And I love how you talked about like not having like a cookie cutter treatment, because I think that that gets us into different problems. Like people don't understand sometimes that there are options in terms of treatment because there's been so much structured, rigid, this is what we do and then you're done. And I'm much more of a talk therapist in the way where I know that when I accept a teen, we are likely to go through various iterations of treatment. And like that, I think is part of the growth process, but it's also part of like their learning and their kind of understanding of therapy and their like safety. Um, and that's part of the reason why I'm not a super structured person. Like I don't really follow like a regimented treatment model. And that I think is where art feels aligned, is that like you're not sitting there being like, in 12 weeks we're going to process this trauma through the use of art.
Yeah, and it's seeing what is best for that client, right? Like taking whole picture here and using just different tools and resources. And also encouraging, hey, I encourage you to use these tools outside of session two to support you. Because we only see these clients maybe once a week, once every other week. So how can we use these skills outside of sessions as well, right? And that's when we bring in the parents and kind of encourage them, hey, use this, and let's best support this client here.
I love this conversation because I feel like art is so applicable. And I love that it's like a reminder that like we can do hard things and it can be fun at the same time.
Oh yeah, big time,
So
big time. Mm-hmm.
what I'm curious, what made you become an art therapist?
So I actually learned about art therapy in high school in my art class. I am somebody who's always been interested in art. I've always liked helping other people and just talking about feelings. I am just a sensitive person, right? A big feeler. So when I found about art therapy in my art class, it just kind of opened up my eyes here of like, what do you mean? What is this? So I started looking into it more. I was someone, I'll say this can be helpful maybe for folks that are listening. In high school and during grade school, I did struggle academically. I was not really interested in it. I wanted to play sports. Like I was the artsy, sportsy kid. And also I was in music, right? I was in choir and everything. I wanted to do all the things, not the work, right? Not the school work here. So I loved it. I loved doing the extracurriculars. And I did not go to a 4 years college after high school. Like all my friends, they went, and perfectionism was coming out, comparison for sure, of like, oh, I guess I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. So I went to county college, which was great. I had such a good experience. I learned more about myself in those 2 years. I got to really be close with the professors because the classrooms were smaller. I got the help that I needed as well because I said I did struggle academically in county college. I really did a turn here for the better. And then I started looking more into art therapy, and that's when I found out about Caldwell. And then I went to Caldwell and I just fell in love. I went there for my bachelor's, my master's. I kept it rolling. did internship hours, and here I am. I am a board certified art therapist, a licensed counselor, and a licensed art therapist. So it was a journey for sure, but I am incredibly grateful and so happy that I kept it moving, that I followed through. Even when I was scared or was thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough or whatever. Right? Whatever those negative thoughts, those ants barking in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing your story, because I do feel like when we look at people who feel successful, they feel passionate, they feel good about what they're doing, we often don't get the backstory of what it took to get there. And that everyone's journey can look a little bit different, right? There's so much pressure on our teenagers nowadays to go to a 4-year school and to decide right away and to do early decision and to like know what you want to do when you're in 7th grade, right? And like the what you just shared was a lot of slowing down and figuring out instinctively what was fitting for you, because the things that your friends were doing were just not a fit for you, and that's okay. And you still ended up in a space where you love your job and you're successful and you're like, you can tell how passionate you are about like art and creativity. And like it's funny because so many teens I work with are like, but it's really going to matter where you go to college. And I was like, no, it doesn't.
Just find a place that feels good for you. Right? Like I know I was looking into bigger schools. That wasn't going to be good for me. No. But I was doing it because that was what other people were doing, and that's what I thought was we were supposed to do. So I'm glad I took the route that I just ended up with. Yeah. And that's okay. Everyone's on their own journey. We're not here to compare, because comparison is that thief of joy.
It's so true. And that's the thing. I mean, it's hard because we look at everyone else's accomplishments and their achievements, and I think there are a lot of people that are like, I want that, but in order to get that, I have to take this exact path, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Like you and I had very different experiences. I was into all the arts, and I was into I played cello and I played saxophone and I was in marching and I did all the theater, right?
Yeah.
Didn't really take the art component in that way, but did it in other means. And I was going to be a bio teacher.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like I went through undergrad and I got my bachelor's in biology and education, and I got a minor in earth science, right? And I was like gonna go into high schools and teach. And I graduated and literally panicked because I was like, oh God, this is not what I want to do at all. Like I do not want a part of that. And I had one person who was like, you'd be a great therapist. And I was like, that. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Right? It's like
yes.
Such an impulsive decision, but I look back on that and I was like, I'm so thankful for Julie, who was the one that was like, you should be a therapist. She gets all the credit for where I'm at right now. But I also like never had thought about that for myself, because I was in a family where they were like, you have to be practical, right?
Okay.
And so now I'm like, well, I'm in a very practical position, right? Like I do therapy, I have like some side stuff that's growing. And so it's a different path entirely, super impulsive. Yeah. After she said that, within a month, I was admitted into a grad program.
Okay.
And this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm committing to.
All in.
And I laugh because I'm like, if I couldn't work with teenagers tomorrow, I think I would quit being a therapist, and I would just like be some sort of like CEO, executive assistant, something, because that's how much I love doing therapy with teens.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what? That's incredible. Finding what was just working for you and making a change too, and doing it even scared. I'm sure you were scared, like, ooh, like, is this a good idea? What should I do here? So doing things scared, and also recognizing that we are allowed to change our mind. That we only have one life here, right? Like, let's do things that do bring us joy. And if it's different than what we thought we were going to be, that's okay. But it still is tough. Just that acknowledgement of, hey, like, I had all these years doing X, and now I'm doing B over here. But, I mean, hey, sometimes things just change, and that's okay.
Well, and I think to me that's the beauty of using art in therapy is that like you get to physically see when you decided to make a change, and you get to like throw out and start again. You get to like decide to like paint over an entire oil canvas and start fresh the next day, right? Like I have I just recently heard about clay therapy. Um and like ceramic arts and stuff like that and how you can use it. And I was floored because I was like, what a cool way to be able to like essentially repurpose and reuse clay, just like routine, right? And like when you think about the neurodiversity of like people that are in therapy and how like you were talking about different materials earlier, and I'm like, I think it would have been so cool to be able to slam a bunch of clay and just like make it into whatever the fuck I wanted, and then to like if I hated it, to repurpose that into something else, right? And I think that art therapy and me, right, feels like it's an opportunity to visually see the experiences that we're having in a way that are very external to us, that don't require life choices or changes, but it's just like, how are you experiencing that? And I think that's a really cool thing.
Absolutely. Oh, that sounds awesome with the clay. I have model magic in my room, so sometimes we'll just like mess with it, and it's air dry, but it's not like instant, right? So absolutely you can continue to reshape it and everything. So even having that in your office can be very helpful, or encouraging your clients like, "Hey, go get some model magic for yourself." Kinetic sand is lovely as well, right? Because you can kind of form some things, and you can do that smash if you want to, that Hulk smash, right? But it's just we have all these resources here, these tools, like let's use them. And I like how you talked about just changing up the clay, or like throwing something out or ripping it up, whatnot. I am big on altered book art. So if you go on my Instagram, you may see that. So altered books, you're taking an old book, an unloved book, big on recycling. So maybe these are books that were going to be thrown away, and we're using that as our sketchbook, as our journal. And I love this because you can just rip a page out if you don't like it. You can sew pages together and hide things inside of it. If there's a page that you really didn't like, we'll put that in the middle and paste some papers on top of it, collage on it. Altered books, it's mixed media, so you can use a variety of techniques in the book. And sometimes, hey, I'll bring this in for clients to work on their own book, and just to see layers unfold, and just allowing themselves to be playful, right? To go through the process and see what comes up. And then I do these in my art workshops. So it's fun. It's fun.
It's so fun. I loved Blackout Poetry so much that I went to a local like thrift store, and I essentially bought any book that was like kind of like hardcover and something I could like give. And because I used to work residential programs, and so like we were operating 24/7 trying to encourage activities and engage them in different things and give them access. And so like we would spend time literally just destroying these books, ripping it out, collaging it, like cutting the covers in different ways, and like blackout poetry. And then like one of my girls did a word search in it, which I was like, and it ended up spanning like 50 pages of like word search, but I thought it was so fun that she like hyper focused on it and did it. And it was like so cool, but I'm like, there is a resource, and they're super cheap. Like you can go to any thrift store and buy a book for like 25 cents, right? And then you can use that for whatever you want to use it for.
Absolutely. Yeah, or college students that have old textbooks that they can't sell it. You could use it for art, right? Or teens that have books that they don't read anymore, and they want to put them to another use. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this so much, and I'm so glad you decided to join us today. I'm gonna post all your stuff below so that everyone can like access your Insta, your website, things like that. But can you talk a little bit about your process for consultation and supervision, or like what someone could expect?
Yeah, so consultation as far as like clients.
Or if it's someone who's trying to get consultation in terms of their own experiences with art and like how they could use it more in session.
Yes, so on my website, abstractandalign.com, there is a consultation and training link. So if they just go there, then it either goes to a form that people can fill out, or you can just send me an email. It's just abstractandaligned@gmail.com. And we just kind of get to chatting, right? See what's going on and how I can best support you. Supervision is through my clinical practice, so that's Lilly Counseling and Art Therapy. I do supervise students that are at Caldwell University. So if you are at Caldwell and you want to work with me as being your supervisor, absolutely, give me a shout. And yeah, if you are looking for counseling hours or art therapy hours and you need a supervisor, yes, you can reach out to me as well there.
Okay, perfect. I will obviously link all this below for folks as well, so it's easy access. But hopefully if you are someone who could benefit from Lindsey in consultation or supervision, or if you have an agency or a school or another organization that could benefit from training or led activities, please feel free to reach out. I know how great you are, and so I don't mind marketing you to everybody to be like, please hire her for everything.
Much appreciated. No, I love this. I love chatting about art, and this was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, everybody, that is it for today. If you have other questions or things that, Lindsey can give us like her thoughts on, please feel free to drop comments below and we'll do our best to respond to them. But for now, I'll see you guys next time.